Blog Talk Radio.
Paranormal Review Radio.
Hello and welcome, everyone. It's Friday night, and you're listening to Paranormal Review Radio with your hosts, Anthony Agati in New York.
And Lucy Liebfried from Chicago.
Lucy, let's tell everyone how they can join in tonight.
Okay. We love our listeners, so we want you to be in on the show alongside Anthony and I. The number to call is 661-244-9831. Now, if you wish to talk to us, press the number 1 after calling the number. And if you wish just to listen to the show on your phone, stay on the line. Now, we have the chat room up and running, so feel free to ask us a question or to stir up a debate in the room. And if you lose sound on your player, just refresh your page or log back in. Blog Talk can be a little testy sometimes. And you can also send us an email at paranormalreviewradio@yahoo.com. And be sure to check us out on our Facebook show page. We have a great show tonight. So, Anthony, why don't you start the intro?
Robyne Marie is deemed the Boston ghost magnet. Clairvoyant since age 4, she experienced direct contact with the world beyond, precognitive dreams, and astral projection. The spirits have walked with her throughout her life. Honored for her gift as a remote viewer, she has given leads to detectives and police on cold cases nationally, earning her critical acclaim for her accuracy. She tests at the high percentile of correctiveness, which is rare. Certified in parapsychology, she has lectured on various topics within the paranormal and metaphysical field, recently being noted for her work on paranormal photo analysis. Robyne is degreed in behavioral psychology and has a background in working with victims of crimes and persons of special needs. Her work experience lends to the gentleness of her readings and non-judgmental guidance she offers her clientele. Robyne lectures on using a unique approach to ghost hunting, which has proven to bring excellent results. Her belief is that we should welcome in the spirits and let them know they are safe. Offer them healing. Always be courteous and respectful. If you are quiet and just listen, they will speak to you. Remember, ghosts are people too. Please help me in welcoming Robyne Marie to the show. Hello, Robyne. How are you tonight?
Hello, and thank you so much for having me on.
It's our pleasure. It is our pleasure, Robyne.
Welcome to the show, Robyne. You know, Anthony mentioned in the intro that you have the title of the Boston Ghost Magnet, which I think it's just such a cool title to have. So how and who gave you this title?
That actually came to me out in California, and I had lived out there for 20 years, and I was in the process of buying a home, and we were there with a realtor and the newspaper, actually, because, I've been in the limelight most of my life. And they were out there doing some interviews, and my daughter happened to say that. She said, my mom is a ghost magnet. And they did this whole write-up and everything on the front cover of the newspaper in California. So that kind of stuck with me over the years.
You know, I read in your bio that you started receiving your medium gifts at the age of 4. Can you tell us what that experience was like as a child?
Well, my family says that it started from birth. And, of course, I was one of those babies that was cooling and talking to something that nobody else could see, but my eyes were following things, and a lot of children have this experience. And so it begins to go away. Now, at 4 years old is my first conscious contact with spirit. And that happened actually in my backyard of my home. North Reading, which is just north of Boston. And I had a time lapse, if you're familiar with that there was hours that passed that I have no recollection of. And when I came to, my aunt was coming out back to bring me in. So the day had passed. Wow. And then about 20 years later, I went back and, we got into paranormal research and all of this. And when I went back to the home, I discovered that there had been a woman that lived there prior to us buying it, and she had committed suicide and killed both of her daughters.
Wow.
Wow.
So she was there. That spirit followed me for 7 years.
Robyne, how are your gifts different than other mediums and psychics?
Well, first off, I'm one of the unusual ones that I use all of my senses. Now, you'll find psychics and mediums or anybody that's a sensitive on a paranormal group that maybe has one, maybe two of their senses that they tap into. I use all of them. So it's all of the clairs, clairgusting, clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairvoyant. All of those I have the ability, very highly developed. The other thing that I do that no one else does world over, at least we haven't been able to find anyone that does it, is to scry through photos. And, we'll get into that.
Mm-hmm. Well, many psychics and mediums that we see a lot, they usually tell of spirits within the last 100 years or so. And I did hear you say something that I thought was really beautiful. Energy never dies. Now, do you see spirits only from recent years, or how far back are you able to see and communicate?
I have actually been blessed, so I'm told, that I saw the ancients, which are either showing as 3 or 4 non-gender beings, and allegedly they came before man. So this is like an angelic spirit, and that's how they look. So I can go all the way back in time, and I certainly see other things, elementals and whatever. So we're seeing masses of energy that we can't put a name to. So, through research and all of that, I try to take a scientific approach with everything. I'm very skeptical about everything that comes my way, even my own things that come to me personally. And I question all of it. And I love to have validation. So I spend a lot of time researching, following up. Fortunately, now we have Google and we can look names up and all of that. And I try to bring everything that I connect with into reality.
Mm-hmm. There is one thing that you have mentioned which I really took great comfort from. And, for example, it was one can still be a Catholic and still believe in being able to connect with spirits. Now, a lot of people believe this is not the case. So how do you answer those people?
Well, I have 12 years of parochial school, 3 years convent, so I'm as Catholic as anybody could possibly be. And now I say I'm Catholic with a side of fries. So I try to take the positive things from so many religions out there that I have studied. Certainly not all, but many. And different belief systems as well. And I've just put all of that together, and it's actually helped me make more sense of my faith. It's brought me much closer to my God, or whatever you want to call your divine being or spirit or energy. I'm much more closer, and I want everybody out there to open their minds and look at different things. And one faith may explain a little bit more in detail what maybe Catholicism doesn't, and vice versa. So I think we have to examine a lot of things out there.
Now, I understand that you also go out on paranormal investigations with certain groups in and around the northeastern states. How did you start in the field, and what have you found fascinating about these investigations?
Well, I want to say I actually work with teams all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, since I live here, through New England, I have some groups that I work with on a regular basis. And I certainly refer them, I honor them on my website, and they do astounding work. But I've gone with teams everywhere in all different countries, and I certainly do photo scrying with people world over. So they'll send me an entire set of investigation photos, and I go over them. And you'll hear later in the show, as we start with the photo portion, is that I did some of that with Anthony's pictures.
Mm-hmm. That's
so,
fascinating.
and I just happened to see some of those posted on Facebook. So, if anything jumps out at me, I just had noted that down. So,
Robyne, do you get a different feeling when you're out investigating with these groups than you would if you were sort of sitting across from someone reading them or even doing the photo scrying?
Well, it's different. When we're on investigations, typically we're at someone's home or we're at a deemed haunted location, and I find that the energy level is very high if I have a good team to work with. So I really enjoy that, and I try to get them involved. I always try to teach them things, and I've certainly learned things from them as we go along. And one thing that I do teach with my classes is for anyone that's a medium, a psychic, a sensitive, that wants to work with paranormal investigators, I try to teach them both how to work well together, how to work effectively, and how to understand what each other's role is on a team or out on an investigation. So very important. But I get a great deal. I always do automatic writing, which they absolutely love because it's a nice visual for people to hold on to afterwards. But I do that right in person for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard you mention that many spirits have told you that they don't see colors in objects the same way we do in life, that they may not be able to see colors or can only see shadows or objects, and not really the full detail of it.
Yes, you did your homework, Lucy.
Could this be the very reason why when investigators say, please come to the green light on this device, a lot of times you're not going to get a reaction from them since they don't see the green?
They see the brightness. And I know this from channeling as well as having a near-death experience. So I've been on the other side myself. Mm-hmm. And I know how difficult it was. And I tried to come back and I tried to communicate with the living, and it was nearly impossible to see. It was like going through a tunnel. And it was very dark, and everything was very black and white. But I could see the darkness and the lightness. So it's how bright something is that really stands out. And then through my channeling, when spirits are in me and looking through my eyes, they can see things. They'll see a camera, and they'll see a light flashing, and it's like it's magnified. So it's almost glaring. It's like someone taking a flashlight and sticking it right into your eyeball. It's very disturbing. So I find that a lot of times they're frightened. They don't know what to make of it.
It's almost sort of like that, we always go back to this. It's like that movie, The Others. They're living their lives and sort of in our world, and we're living our lives in their world, and it's sort of that coexistence, and they feel fear, they feel everything that we do.
Absolutely. If we could just take Hollywood out of it, and we could see them that they are just people.
Right.
They lived here, they did everything that we did. Some of them died traumatized deaths. They're still balancing. They're still, as we look at Far Eastern culture, that and belief systems and religions, that they're teaching us that. There's a lot of that I think we need to incorporate, is that they're balancing their karma. They're trying to make up for things that perhaps they didn't get a chance to finish in lifetime, or they're trying to understand why they had an illness, or, many different reasons. And so we need to lighten up on them. I think that ghosts get a bum rap, and they get blamed for a lot of things that happen, and they're just people.
Mhm.
I also think a lot of people within the paranormal field sort of, take their aggressions or anger out on them when, they don't possibly have the full knowledge of the location that they're in.
I just love all these pictures of the teens out there with their arms folded.
Yeah.
And their tool belts on.
Yeah.
And they look like they're going into battle. In fact, some of them even write that way. They were battling the demons. My goodness, these are people's grandmothers and grandfathers and brothers and sisters and your pets and everything that's over there that are trying to get through and give you messages and teach you things. They have the knowledge. And there's so much they can share with us. And it cracks me up when I see that, because I'm thinking, what are they fighting?
Right.
Why don't they understand that if we take out the aggression, how much more we can do in silence?
Well, this sort of leads into my next question, and I've asked this question to many different people of all different levels and experience levels in the paranormal community, so I would love to ask you your opinion on this, Robyne. I've always wanted to know why spirits stay at a location where they had traumatic experiences, like being tortured or basically a rough life while they were alive. If they are in spirit form, wouldn't they want to stay away from that location because of all the negative energy that surrounds it?
Sometimes they are still working through it, and I only say this from direct contact with them. I ask them, why are you here? We always use the term someone's stuck. They're not stuck like you're trapped in a closet and you cannot get out. They're stuck in the moment, in the experience. And it goes back to karma, that they're trying to balance that. They have to understand what happened. Sometimes they're pulled out of this life so quickly, and we'll be talking about 9/11 and how traumatizing that was and how totally unsuspecting people were. And they go back there to make their peace, to look at it, to understand. And even us that go to some of these haunted locations, they're giving peace to us. They're giving us messages. I lived here. I was important. I have more to say.
Well, see, I always thought that when you did cross over, you sort of, and I may not be putting this right, you sort of get all of the knowledge and all of the information that you've ever asked or ever wondered about. Once you cross over, that all comes to you. And so I thought that if the spirits did receive that, they would have received, the answers to whatever they were looking for in their life. And so that sort of prompted that question, that if they did receive that, if they are receiving that, then why are they still in that area where they did have traumatic experiences while alive?
That truly does happen, but it's not instant. It's not like you show up at the pearly gates and St. Peter says, here's a bag full of knowledge. Now you got everything. It's a process, and some do it very quickly. And if you believe in reincarnation and you're able to move on into another incarnation, which maybe you don't, but that's okay. You're still gaining the knowledge on the other side. And it may take, we have time on this side, so by the clock, it may take them 20 years, it may take them 50 years. Some may get it much quicker. Some don't have a lot to really gain in that moment, and so they're able to move on. They can move into another body, into another life, an incarnation, or they can stay on the other side and continue their lessons. And they're certainly taking time to come to us and give us knowledge. So they have duties. They have a responsibility on the other side to pass things on to those who are still alive.
You touched on reincarnation. Have you ever connected with someone who has lived more than one life?
You know, many, many times. And in fact, myself, I'm always adding to my repertoire. I've been studying with Reverend Deborah Herselbush from out in New York, and she's phenomenal with past life. And I'm trying to develop more of that in my readings. Able to tap into some people quite easily and others not as much. But yes, I do absolutely believe in that. And I don't like to hit anyone over the head with that. I know that religiously, you know, some of our religions tell us to, you know, we go against that. But
right.
I have to believe it. I've seen it too many times. I, from early childhood, from 5 years old on, had extensive dreams that told me about how I had been killed and things that happened in a past life. And I know far too many stories that are like mine.
Let's talk about demonic cases. Have you ever come in contact with a demon or an evil spirit?
Here's my take on that, because it's a little bit different. And I've done some of the cases right after John Zaffis, Lorraine Warren, and all of those I've been called out on too. Things seem to continue. And so teens will call me because I try to settle things once and for all. And I'm not saying that's 100% of the time, but the ones I have sat on, it has been. My approach, because I've worked in psychology, I try to use the blend. And because I look at spirit just as I do the living, I try to counsel them. And I have never met anything that I would put a label to that is demonic. I know some really nasty little children that I would say are little demons. I know there's people out there that just do the most horrendous crimes that I would say are demonic that are living. But in the spirit world, I have not encountered that. I know that there's some horrific things that exist. So I'm not saying there isn't such thing as a demon. But if you identify who it is and you find out what the problem is, and we're quiet and we listen, and that's a big thing that we have going against us, is we do not listen. We're already there, we're frightened, we're putting labels on it, and we've already summed it up. That it's something that's to be frightened of. And this is a person that is trying to communicate with you, that may have been traumatized, that maybe has mental health issues, and is taking a memory of that to the other side with them. Just think of people in the living. You can walk into a mall, and there's people that you feel really comfortable, and you say hi as you go by, and other people you want to cross over to the other side because you just have that feeling, and that's their energy that we're feeling off of them. And it's the same with spirits. They're very troubled. And I know my faith, and I just want to say, before you go on, just one last thing.
Sure.
Is if we truly have conviction in whatever our faith system is, we must stick by that very strongly. So nothing should be able to waver that. So if we come against a human being that's troubled, we're told not to react to it. We don't give in to someone that's a bully, that's trying to frighten us. We're to ignore it or to walk away. And we need to look at spirit in the same way. That we do not allow them to possess us and overtake us. Because we're strong in our faith, therefore they cannot. And all the demonic cases that we hear about, there's always something, a window within the family or the individual that gets possessed or has demonic activity that keeps repeating. There's that window that they can get into. It's broken. There's something that's broken, and they can get in through the cracks. And that's within your faith.
Well, you know, we've been in the field, Lucy and I have been in the field for several years now, and we've sort of come in contact with and encountered spirits who we thought were, the innocent, even in children form, that would come to us and we'd communicate with. But, towards the end, we kind of find out that they're not so innocent. They're just a front for some sort of evil spirit or demon. I don't know if psychics and mediums can, right off the bat, truly see who they really are and, sort of see through that veil that they're trying to put over. Go ahead. You can answer that first.
Well, I talk to them just as I would the living. And being a counselor, I know when someone's screwing with me. I really do. And I have seen child spirits, and I almost see them morphing.
Right.
And I even see genders changing. And I don't have a very clear or definitive answer as to why that happens, but always they're very troubled. That much I know. And I wonder sometimes if they're not confused in manipulating the energy and trying to manifest and trying to make sense of everything that's happened between here and the world beyond. But yes, I definitely have seen that. But I tell them, don't mess with me. And it's as simple as that. And I don't see too many investigators out there that do. They just acknowledge that that's happening, and they close up shop. They get really scared. Yep. And again, you have the advantage. You're alive.
Right. Lucy and I have been in the field, and it seems, though, that these lower level entities or evil spirits or demons, however you want to call them, seem to be attracted towards me. I've been scratched. I've had my camera knocked out of my hand. I've even felt oppressed leaving one location. Are certain people more susceptible? And you talked about, having that window open. Some people have that window open and allow that. But are people more susceptible to negative spirits than others?
Here's some things, absolutely. Just as think of the living, there's certain people that are attracted to you and others will walk the other way. So, like minds kind of attach. Here's the thing that I find with males out there that are investigating. I think you have a very outgoing and strong personality. And sometimes when you come up against a male spirit, they almost feel threatened.
Right.
And so that's when I see a lot of these things happen, that they'll mess with you.
We've discussed this topic on previous shows, and it's sort of become like a hot debate in the field. But can a demonic or negatively haunted location be completely cleansed or free of these lower-level spirits?
I believe so, and I've been able to do it with great success. And I don't like to say 100% of the time. I really don't think I should be so sure of myself. But I have very, very good results. And as I said, I've even gone in behind, a good friend, and I'm very respectful of him. John Zaffis' cases, Lorraine Warren's cases, other people that are high profile that have worked on some things and haven't had total success. They certainly help the living. They maybe comment in the moment, but it seems to continue on. And a big factor is the home or even the haunted location. Do the people really want it gone? And a lot of times they don't. Because if you have a demon in your cellar, it sells. You'll have shows calling you. You'll have books written about you.
Yeah. What about exorcism? What about exorcisms? Do you feel it should be dealt with only of the clergy or a higher religious background?
I'm just going to say fact here. I I think this is a tricky one. We know within Catholicism that it must be an ordained priest that is assigned by the Pope that is authorized to carry out such a ritual.
Right.
Me personally, I feel that it doesn't hurt to go through the steps of an exorcism if you feel that you are perhaps an ordained minister of some other faith, if you have experience. Blessings, cleansings, that's fine for people to do, but if you're going to delve in that and you do not have the education or experience, and I'm not talking about reading one book or turning on ghost hunters.
Right.
Okay, I'm talking about years of education in theology and the like, that you should not delve into those things because people have gotten hurt and they're not addressing it the right way, and they're basically going in and provoking what's in there all the more. And you're playing with fire. And no, I don't think the average person should just do that. It doesn't hurt to do cleansing. It doesn't hurt to say your prayers or to bless things or make the attempt to bring peace to whatever is troubled there.
You know, Robyne, one of the things that you had just said, and it just popped a question into my head here when Anthony was talking about like the lower level spirits seem to be attracted to him. I have a pretty strong faith, and I've noticed that my encounters with spirits always seem to be more on the gentle side. They always seem to be very, very peaceful or nice. It's been very rare that I've come across something that was negative feeling. And even if it was negative, it's almost like they don't seem to bother me at all. Is that a result of my faith?
I have to agree with you. It's the same thing with me. I have some very close friends, again, high-profile positions in the field, that they tell me they're always coming up against demons. And I say, how can this happen? I go into the same places, and I'm making friends with the spirits. And when I return, they're even calling my name, that they come out on EVPs. Like they're happy to see me again. But, you know, I try to compare things to a dog when I'm teaching classes here. And we know if there's a ferocious dog, you're supposed to put the back of your hand up to it so he can sniff it. And there's a very good reason why. And I take kind of a similar approach when I go into the spirits in channeling, is that I just open myself up and I allow them to come to me. I don't force it. And I let them sniff around me and see if they like me. And then if they do and they feel comfortable, messages come. And if they want to dump on me, they know they can dump on me. And there's been some horrific things that have run up to me and even slammed into me and knocked me over. And it's not because they're pushing like we would push with hands. It's the blow of the energy. It's just so strong and so ferocious that it knocks you over. So I'm digressing from your question. So, I mean, that's touching on a little bit, I think, of what you were saying with certain people. Yeah, I mean, most definitely. And Anthony, I'm not surprised because, like I said, you have a particular personality, and I think that in itself might set off some male spirits that come your way.
Yeah, I do tend to, not willingly, but I do tend to give off, sort of anxiety. I try to be calm and, sort of, cool and lay back, but I tend to give off that anxiety. And I think the reason why I do it is because I try so hard. I'm trying so hard to communicate that it may come off incorrectly. And maybe that energy is being perceived wrong, and maybe that's why I may be getting that negative energy back towards me.
That's it. And you may not be conscious of it. Maybe you're frightened inside. Maybe you have so many questions, you're not really sure what to do with it, in anticipation of something happening, like you say. But they can almost sense that. They can smell it off you, like I was saying, just like a dog. They know when you're frightened, or they know that you're there, almost to do battle. And so I take the approach that I do nothing. Stop doing everything. Put everything down. Just sit there. Listen. Let your mind wander. Get into a meditative state if you're able to, but at least get to the point where you're almost so relaxed that you want to fall asleep, and you will start getting EVPs, and your lights will start going off, and they'll start giving you messages.
I love that you're saying that, because that's exactly what I try to do. And me and Anthony can be in the exact same place, and he will get a reaction that's much more negative, and I just like to sit there and let them come to me. And it just, I'm telling you, Robyne, it's for me, these encounters are almost peaceful. And even when something is, you can tell that Anthony's having like a more aggressive reaction, my reaction is just, it's peaceful.
I'm so happy to hear that.
I mean, I'm just so amazed at the things that you're saying, because you're touching on exactly how I feel when I investigate, and I think that's awesome. I really do. I mean, this is so great. But you know what, Robyne, I do want to talk about your film and your television history. Can you tell us a little bit about where you've appeared and what shows you've been on?
Oh, my goodness, there's so many. The new one, well, I'll say the new one, it goes all the way back to when I was 5. The Bozo Show. I was on Bozo.
Oh, my goodness.
I love Bozo.
Yeah, so we can go way, way back. Yeah, people are like, what the heck is Bozo? I know, I'm dating myself now. But I'm going to be on my ghost story, which is coming up, so please check, local listings. It'll be on within the next month or two. And that's about, the episode is Centralia. And that's the coal mine that's burning underground in Pennsylvania. And that acted as the inspiration for Silent Hill. So it's very eerie, the things that happened to us while I was making my movie, Ghosts of Fire. And so my ghost story picked that up. And they're showing some of the specific things that happened, how I connected with Spirit, and then it continued. When we went back the next day, we made a connection with what Spirit had told me the night before. So it's really interesting how I think it's a good lesson in going back and revisiting things. Because sometimes they're not telling you everything, or it's not making sense to you at the moment. But if you start to piece things together, and certainly like photo scrying, I go back and I look at them again and something else comes out, we have to continue on. So maybe the next day there's more to it that they want to say. And we had just unbelievable things that happened and are still happening. We're doing part 2 of the movie now, and that will probably be finished up by November, and that's Ghost of Fire 2, and we're delving a little bit more into the Molly Maguires and what happened to them.
Now, I did read that you worked on the newly released film by the Booth brothers called Children of the Grave 2. What was your role in the film, and what can we expect to see?
Well, they filmed some of my mediumship, and I went to an elementary and junior high school with them. So that was very, very interesting to me. I love all different locations that I go to, and this was very unique in itself. I had all different spirits that were just coming out to talk to me soon as we pulled up in the driveway. So I knew that place was just busting to talk. And when we went in, I came across 3 teen girls, and they were singing, and they held up a poster, and I'm seeing all of this through clairvoyancy and clairaudiently that they were talking and singing, and they had a poster of James Cagney, and they unrolled it, and they pinned it up to the wall so all the girls passing by in the hallway could see him, and they were just so in love with him. You'd think it was like Justin Bieber. It was so cute. And you're like, oh, James Cagney. And then they started singing some old-time songs, which was, well, you'll hear me in the movie singing that, and I was trying to repeat back exactly as they did it, but it was an old waltz that came out around the time, around 1930s. So it was a lot of fun working with them. The Booth brothers take the same approach that I do within their documentaries, is that you try to show the human element within it.
Right.
And to show that they're people. Back to the beginning of what we were saying. These are people, and we need to love them and respect them and listen to them.
Well, you know what, Robin? Let's get back to your abilities now. One of the more amazing gifts that you have is automatic writing. Can anyone do this, or is it a received gift from the other side?
No, automatic writing. Everybody has this ability. And again, it's to what level you're going to develop it to. We begin to sit and lose our thoughts while we're on the phone, and we start to doodle with our pen out of boredom. And our mind is wandering, and we just start drawing little pictures. And this is the subconscious that is taking over. Now, there's that degree of it, and I think we've all experienced that. Then there is mediumistic automatism, and that is another division of it. Within parapsychology, that's the term that would be used when I am channeling spirit and they are writing through me. So it's the same kind of technique where I'm allowing somebody to take over my subconscious, and they're physically moving my hand.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are some people who believe that automatic writing is dangerous, and it actually could open a connection with negative entities. And some people, I've read some people equate automatic writing to Ouija boards. Now, you do have a disclaimer on your website that reads, "We strongly object to the use of Ouija boards for spirit communications." Do you believe there's a difference between the two?
Actually, it's who is using any tool. Anything that you pick up, whether it's a crystal, a Ouija board, tarot cards, playing cards, anything, you can open that window to a lower level of spirits, which is what you don't want to pull through. So know your stuff. Take a class. Train with another medium. Know things before you get into it, because you are opening yourself up to anything. Now, I'm not 100% against Ouija boards, but the people that typically use Ouija boards are very negative people for some reason.
Yeah.
And I've just never seen that fail. They're getting drunk at a party. Somebody says, hey, let's grab the Ouija board out of the closet. And they're already inebriated, and they're all sitting there, and guess what? Guess what comes through? What a surprise. So, you know, use your good sense if you're going to use these things. I've used Ouija boards, and like you're saying, Lucy, nothing negative comes through. You know, so its state of mind has a lot to do with it.
Okay. Well, you know what, being of the Catholic Christian faith, do you believe that the Bible could have been created by automatic writing?
I believe wholeheartedly that a lot of that, I know for the saints, if you read their stories, that a lot of things came to them in dreams and through automatic writing. God spoke through them. God spoke through them, and so it's not their words, it's allegedly God's words. So, of course, it's automatic writing.
Now,
very much so.
Well, you've just released a new book called The Harvey Boat, and this was done by Automatic Writing. It is a really interesting story because it relates to 9/11. Can you share with our listeners how you came to write the book?
Yes, actually I was at Ground Zero back in 2010, and my family lives in Manhattan, and so I was there, and when I came home, about 2 mornings after, I woke up and I had a spirit's face right in my face, literally pressing against my nose. And when that happens, I have communication with, all types of spirits all day, all night. But when they are right up in my face like that, I notice something really urgent, good, bad, or otherwise. And so I sat up, and he was still there, and this was a young male. I could just see his face. And it was beautiful, sparkling face, looked kind of Hispanic looking, beautiful white teeth, gorgeous smile. And he told me, we're going to write a book. And I said, oh, we are? Okay, this is a great way to start my day. All right, fine. So tell me about this book. And I joke with him all the time. Just as I joke around in the real world with the living. And so I talk to them just the same way. And I understood after hearing a few words from him that he was very passionate about this, and I began to take it very seriously. And he opened up what we know as the veil. And I was able to see behind him. And it was like a tunnel. And I could see like maybe a mile in the distance behind him. It almost seemed infinite. And I saw hundreds of heads, just the tops of the heads. And the rest around them was very white and very airy, kind of like you see a dream sequence in a movie. But I could see them moving as if they were leaning from side to side, walking around back there. But only he spoke. And I wonder to this day if they all could see me. It's as if they were waiting for him to be the spokesman and speak for them. And he told me that he had been killed in 9/11, that he was one of the victims. And I kept asking him, what is your name? And he would never tell me, but he told me to refer to him as the teacher. And when I pushed him at the end of all of this to tell me a name, he said, it's not about you, and it's not about me. He said, it's about the message. So he didn't want his name revealed. And I just want to say to everyone out there, since I did identify who it was, I did find out who the spirit was that passed.
Okay.
So that means a lot to me. It's very emotional. I'm still trying to deal with it and put it in a safe place in my mind, because just the reality of it, in knowing that that's a real person that made contact, and this message is just so poignant. It was so important to him and to the others. I just want to say to people, and I know that you're in New York, Anthony, and it's important, my family's there, my friends are there and everything, that I love and I respect all the passed away. And when we're talking about this, it is not done to be offensive to anyone or to frighten anyone or disrespect. I can only tell you my story and my experience, and that's direct contact with someone that passed away that gave us a very good message, and I hope this brings comfort to all of you whose lives this touched. He said that we are all together on the other side, and that we are safe. And I'm quoting him. And I saw them all behind him, all moving around. And I believe in my heart that that was all of the victims, and that they're there giving their love and support to one another and passing many messages on to a lot of us. I'm certain I'm not the only one.
Mhm.
So
Robyne,
I
why do you
have felt very driven to get this book out because he asked me to do this.
Robyne, why do you think he chose you to write the book?
I have a lot of family there. I lived in New York in the summers. On a personal level, I can understand why. But I know as a medium, a lot of entities come to me because they know I'm okay with all of it. I believe they also know who is going to follow through on things.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel now that I've bonded with him and built a relationship with this person on the other side, that he knew he could trust in me, that I would carry it out. And I'm telling you, I went through tooth and nail just so I could get this book out.
Have you ever been in contact with that spirit after he came to you when riding the Harvey Boat?
Yes, I can call on him, and he does answer me. He answers questions. I have not physically seen him after that day. But about 2 weeks later, he came to me, and, you know, his presence is there. You can almost smell a being, and so his presence was very strong. And I knew he was there, and he began to give me visions as to what the illustrations should be. So he knew I wasn't done with it. He came and gave me more information. And so then I had to find the right person to sit down and illustrate it. And I went through a couple of them that didn't follow through. So that's why this book took an extra year to get it out.
You and I had been in contact earlier in the year, and I think it was about the time when you had finished writing the book, and you had asked if I could write a review, and I felt honored to do that and privileged. I mean, after reading it, it is such a beautifully poignant, if that is a word, book for children. And I think I wrote this in my review of the book, that it's not just for children, because I received sort of an emotional reaction to it after reading it. I learned something, and it's not just for children; it is for adults. And you know, I was there on 9/11. I was, you know, right down the street when the first plane had hit, and so that vision and that memory will stick with me forever. And reading, and I haven't read any books on it. I haven't even looked for any sort of media publications on 9/11. I've watched a lot of videos, but never once have I read a book about it. And after you had sent it to me, and I read it, well, actually, I'm sorry. Before I had read it, I thought, how can you explain 9/11 to children? How do you create something good out of that day and teach something to children? And I couldn't think of how you could go about doing it. And then after I read your book, I said, that's it. That was it. I mean,
Isn't it?
It is.
I totally agree with you. When the Spirit told me that that's what we were going to do, I thought, oh my God, how could you possibly, and why would you even think of presenting this to children? Right. And yet it's done so beautifully. I take no credit for it. I didn't write it.
And you know, the book is titled The Harvey Boat, and it's an actual true story of the Harvey Boat.
Oh my goodness. I only found that out because, just for the heck of it, I Googled it. I typed in Harvey Boat because I'm trying to make sense of all of this. As I told you, I always take a very skeptical approach. Have I gone insane? Have I finally gone off the edge with all of this? And every day of my life is like this. But this was really heavy, and to wake up out of what was almost like a catatonic state, and you see a whole entire book that's punctuated and capitalized and even laid out the way it should be in the book. And you come to and you see this, I thought, oh my gosh, I've lost it. And so I Googled this, and a whole website came up for the Harvey Boat. And it's a museum.
Yeah.
And the little fireboat existed. And it had been retired, and they rebuilt it, painted it and everything, and put all new doodads and whatnot, and now it's a museum. And I'm going to see it on Sunday in New York, and I'm so honored. I feel like I'm going to meet a live friend of mine.
Beautiful.
That is beautiful, and it's sort of like you're coming sort of full circle with this experience now that you're going to come to New York, which I welcome you with open arms. It's so beautiful here right now with the weather. And it's sort of a full circle now. You went through that experience, you wrote the book, and now you're actually going to be here and be within the Harvey Boat, which I can only imagine is going to be an amazing experience for you.
I get very, very emotional thinking about it.
Yeah.
Very much so. As I said, and from reading the book, that it was written that the little boat takes on a human characteristic.
Right.
And so that's like a person to me, and I'm finally going to meet him. And that little boat has not only changed the lives of those in New York, because factually I found out what's written in the book happened, that little boat for 4 days pumped water from the river over into Manhattan, or that fire would have continued burning.
Right.
They literally ran out of water at that time, and even the restaurants weren't letting the firemen tap into their lines, and all of those things were happening such difficulty, and they went and got this little fireboat, and as small and insignificant as he was able to do great things in such magnitude and save lives. And that's where I think you're saying about how this book is for adults, because we've all been children, and we've all been bullied, and even now as adults we have competition and we have challenges day to day, and you don't feel sometimes like you're running, achieving maybe as much as what you should be doing. We all feel like we fall short of that sometimes. And if you read this book, you'll understand that every single one of us in this universe matters, and how much we can do in working in community and helping each other, especially through such a traumatized time as 9/11, that everybody helped and everybody mattered. So I hope adults get this book and read it.
Will you hope that the spirit that you've made contact with or had contacted you to write the book, do you hope to have him around when you come to New York on Sunday?
Yes, I've already been preparing for that. I do seances, and so, I light my candles, I bring out the crystals and everything to bring up that positive energy, and I told him that I'm going. And we're going to film it, because I want me to be seen making that connection for the first time. I want to play that back time and time again. This is for myself.
Right.
Because that moment is going to be so special and so significant. And I've told him I'm going. And the circle has not come full yet, because he told me that there is going to be a revelation at one of the book signings. And so I'm waiting for that to happen. And I'm sure there's going to be some other connection.
Have you ever received, or have you received negative feedback for this book from any of the victims' families or anyone else?
One person. I have had hundreds of people write to me. I have been on numerous radio shows. I've done magazine interviews. We've done some filmings now that will be on PBS and the History Channel. Everybody that sees this book and understands where I'm coming from doesn't have any problem with it. They're almost as passionate about it as I am, I have to say. They just fall in love with the whole idea of it. And only one person took it the wrong way, and I send my apologies to her, and I wrote to her several times so she would understand where I am coming from, that I'm doing this because I love those who passed away.
What's also great is that the illustrator for your book is a child, is a young child.
Yes, and I had two other illustrators before that, and it just didn't work. One didn't have time, and I said, oh, forget this, months have gone by, I have to get this book out. And I went to another person, and they didn't follow through. And a friend of mine who's on a team, Shadow House, Paranormal Investigation Team, said, you know, my nephew draws, and it dawned on me, oh my goodness, what could be better than to have a youth draw pictures for a book that's for the children? And here was the tricky part. Spirit gave me the vision of what the illustrations were supposed to look like. And then I had to convey the information to a third party. And it was like a little miracle that happened because he did those pictures exactly as I was sitting there telling him what to do. He got it. He captured the look of what the people look like. And the people in there look like spirits. They have very hollow mouths, very hollow eyes, and there's not much detail to them. And believe it or not, that's how I physically see spirits. Most of the time, the center of their faces are missing.
You know, I certainly did not see your vision. I was not around when you had the spirit come to you. But when I saw the images and you sent me over the media kit, and I looked at the illustrations and the words on the pages, it did seem to just fit. It's almost as if it validated my, I guess, premonition of what it would be before you had sent it to me, and it sort of validated, yes, this is it. This is the book. I'm not a sensitive, I'm not a psychic or medium or anything like that, but I just knew once I saw the images and the words, and it's such a simple book that it just basically reads for itself. I don't know. I've never been so enamored by a book before, and I've talked about and I've read many, many books, paranormal and drama books, everything, and this book, I don't know. I don't have the words, Robyne. It just struck me. I guess because I have a personal.
I know it's hard. I sound on radio shows like I'm tripping over my words, but it's just so powerful and yet so simple, like you're saying. There isn't much to it at all, really. But these characters in the book take on this human quality within them, and we've all been there, and I think all of us can relate to each of the characters.
Yeah.
And certainly 9/11 itself, but there's more than just about 9/11 in there. There's
so
much
what's
more.
What's the one thing that you would like readers to sort of take away from this book?
I want them to know that they can connect with spirit, and they can do it through automatic writing. And I want them to try that. That's a big thing as far as my mediumship goes. How great and how complete something can be in connecting with spirit. So whether you're a sensitive on a team, or a psychic, or just a medium, or whatever it is that you feel you have an ability for, try it. Try to make that connection. And how much wisdom we can learn from the other side. I didn't know any of this, and he taught me so much. And he taught me more about community through this message. And so I hope everybody of all ages get this. I also suggest that if you have a child that has ability, the book does not talk about spirit. It's a whole story. It doesn't talk about ghosts or mediumship or anything like that. Only my foreword does. Only the first page does. So if you want to give it to a child, you can take that page out and share it with them, and then it becomes just a regular history book for them. But if you have a child with abilities, and I say this with my greatest love, because I am a child that my family told me it was okay to be different, and it was okay to speak to the other side. And so that's why my abilities are so developed now. And I want parents out there to use this book as a tool, because I think it's a nice way to introduce it within the family and to the child, that it's okay.
That's. I mean, you just said it beautifully. That's if that's the one thing that anybody can take from that, it's that.
Well, it seems like it can open up.
And I thank you so much for the review and everything. You know, your life is going to live on, your words, because you're on the back of the book. And just thank you so much for taking the time to read it. It's still very sore to people.
Yeah.
And there were several that just didn't want to touch that. And I thank you for taking that time, and now you see what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, you know, the whole show tonight that we titled is Photo Scrying, and we've had a lot of responses from our fans on Facebook and on email that had sent us pictures, and both Lucy and I had posted our pictures. But this isn't a medium that I've seen others do. How do you come, or I mean, how did you come to learn this gift?
This I found out that I could do quite accidentally, and it's only because there was a medium that I was going on to a radio show with when I developed my own radio show. And she decided she was going to be a little cocky about things. She hadn't heard of me. And she was going to throw me a photo. And she said, "Here, what do you get off of this?" And she was testing me. And that's okay. But I took a look at it, and there was a man in it, and I had no idea who the man was. This is back many years ago. And I'm looking and looking, and there's just blackness behind him, and I could see a street sign. And it didn't say, you know, it's like Bob Smith Highway. You know, I had no idea, like, where this road was. And I stopped looking at the subject. I stopped looking at the person in the picture, and a live spirit started to manifest. And at first he was, just so you know what I see visibly, they start out as big as the people in the pictures, And then they actually come out of the picture and they even go full size. It's like they're standing in front of the photo. Sometimes they stay within the photo and they're walking back and forth behind the people that are still in it. And it's thoroughly fascinating to me. It's almost entertainment. It's that fun because I never know what I'm going to see or hear. And sometimes they talk. Sometimes they've sang songs. They've danced. They've made comments about the person standing in the picture, which is hysterical. And yeah, I never know what's going to come out there. And it's also very moving. I've had very poignant things that have been said that I've relayed back to clients because of this, something that may be very important they needed to hear. And I've found things through it. You know, Spirit has told me, you know, well, so-and-so has my ring, and they were looking for the ring since this person died. So it's very, very interesting. Now, that person in the picture happened to have been Patrick Burns.
Oh, wow.
Who I got to, yeah. Now, he was just hanging out. You know, he wasn't all glamorous as we see on TV. And I loved his show at the time. And fortunately, since then, I've gotten to know him in person. And he's a wonderful, beautiful, beautiful man. But I let him know because I felt like I had to pass on that message that the person that came out of that picture told me his name was Billy. And so I went to Patrick. I wrote him, actually, because I try to be graceful in how I say things to people. And I wrote him an email, and I said, you know, it was kind of funny. I got this picture given to me, and I said, somebody came out from behind you, and I only knew it was him because the medium afterwards told me that's Patrick Burns. And I said, he told me his name was Billy, and that he had been killed in a car accident. And he was very young. And I said, does that mean anything to you? Well, his letter to me is now on my website, and it's under all of the letters. If you go into readings, there's a button in there that says letters of appreciation. And the letter that he wrote to me, he told me how gifted I was because that was his brother that had been killed years before, which, respectfully to him, you know, he doesn't talk about this. So I won't go into more detail. But in fact, his name was Billy. So it was kind of shocking. And I said, you know, I think I have something here. And I started to pick up other pictures, and I was seeing more and more of this. Not every single picture, but the majority, I do see something. And at first I thought it was a type of psychometry where you're physically holding a photo and getting things off of it, but it wasn't. I can do it through the Internet. I can do it if it's on a screen, on a computer screen. It doesn't matter. But why it happens, I don't know. We're researching. I have people on the TAPS team that are looking into it. I have people from Ghost Hunters International that work with me in person that are looking into reasons why this physically happens. But I can do this. And, you know,
and
hopefully
you can pick up on that, like if you're driving down the street and you see a billboard, you're able to see.
Yes.
So, that's amazing.
Exactly. It happens all the time now. Now I have a habit. This is like a drug to me. Send me some photos, and I just go. I won't sleep. I have teams from all over the world, as I said. You know, when you're on an investigation, you shoot 200-300 photos. And they'll send them all to me in a file. And I will literally sit there around the clock going through them, one after another. And I tell people, don't tell me anything. Don't put a name on the file. I don't want to see anybody's name. I want to validate that I am doing this legitimately. So don't tell me, we went to Rolling Hills and we took this series of photos. Just send them and say, have a nice day. This is what I want you to do. And I do it just as a regular reading session if people ever want to use me. And I'll give you a written report.
Are certain pictures more easily readable than others? Like, does anything block you if you have a picture of a portrait of someone, or is it better to read the picture if it's more scenic?
I can only say there is no rule that's right or wrong, because sometimes they can come through anything. But what does work pretty consistently, or more so I'll say, are pictures that I do not have a close-up face of. Because when I have a close-up face and I can't see anything around it, I start to do a reading on that person that I'm looking at. And this is not a reading. This is physically making contact with the spirit. I'm seeing them live and animated walking around. So I want to see space around you. And I picked on one of the pictures, actually, that was in your album, Anthony.
Yeah, can we get into some of those pictures?
Sure. But, saying what works and what doesn't, your face obviously is in it, but I can see a lot of space around you. And you can even send me a picture with nobody in it. And it's just a room. And those work very, very well. I tell people, walk around your house and snap every single one of the rooms at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay? Any time will do. But I'm just saying, go around when everything's nice and quiet. Take pictures of your kids while they're sleeping. Or Grandpa is in a chair in the living room and he fell asleep in front of the TV. Those are the best because everything comes out then.
All right, so Lucy, did you want to say anything?
Well, I'm really anxious to talk about the pictures that are on the that you looked at. In particular, there is one, and it was towards the bottom, and it's a picture of a couple. And you had written, "I'm uncertain. Has this man passed? I feel that he has. If not, let's discuss other possibilities." I would like to revisit this one.
Yeah.
So can we talk about that one?
If you're comfortable in doing that, yes.
Yes, I am. That's my picture.
Okay. I felt as though he was past, and there are times that I am wrong about that, and there are reasons. So I'd just like to confirm if, in fact, he's on the other side.
Yes, he is.
Okay. I never like to upset anybody, so when I saw this person in the photo, I felt as though there was a great deal of sadness, things that were unresolved. And I don't mean that in a bad sense. Maybe he was taken at a very young age and didn't get to complete a lot of things. And I felt as though his connection with the woman in the picture, I'm assuming that's you.
No.
It isn't?
That's my mother. No, that's my mother.
Okay. Well, you look an awful lot alike. So there is a great love and passion for who he is looking at in the picture. And there is a deep, deep sadness that came over me. Now, I am going to go back and revisit that because I could pull it up tomorrow and maybe then he's ready to talk.
Okay.
So he didn't say anything in particular at this time. But I kind of know from doing this for so many years that they will talk. They need to feel comfortable with me. they need to get a grip on or control of their emotions, because sometimes they get very overwhelmed too.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there will be things said.
Okay. But I truly, you are very correct in your first feelings on that.
Mm-hmm. I'll explain. Sometimes when I get confusion like that, he's still very much alive on this plane. He's still very much here and present. So it confuses me. I'll feel like they passed away, and then I'll say, no, it feels more like the living, and vice versa. Another phenomenon that happens when I'm doing readings is somebody will say, oh, no, my mother's alive. She's not passed away. I find out that that person has a severe case of Alzheimer's, and they're well into the stages of it. And I know that they astral project, and I know that they through telepathic means, they're able to communicate. So sometimes I'll get Alzheimer's patients, things like that have passed on messages.
Okay.
Okay, Lucy?
Yeah, I'm fine.
There were several...
And go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Robyne. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I always try to be very gentle and graceful how I present things. And I did sense that there was reason for me to put that note, and I'm glad that I did. So, in private, we will definitely go back and visit that if you feel like you're ready to receive messages.
Oh, I am. I've been trying. I know my mother has been trying to reach out to me, and I've been connecting with her, and it is very true. There's a lot of unresolved on both sides. Okay.
Well,
there is one picture on here that I found really, really interesting. It is the one that, like you said, it is with just the scene of landscape. And it says there are 4 soldiers walking from left to right.
Yes, and I have the paper up, too, so I can read along with you.
Now that is fascinating.
Well, do you know about that picture? Like where that is?
No.
No, this is actually... Yeah, this is actually a fan that sent it in, and I believe the name is Levon. She had sent this picture in for you to read, and that's the only information that we have. So, I'm hoping Levon is in. I'm hoping she is. Levon, if you're in chat, if you can, well, she may be a guest, so she may not be able to type, but I'm hoping that she's listening.
Very black, maybe a hillside or a field of some type of a beautiful sunset behind it. Very blue sky with, you can see the top of the sun going down. But what I picked up in that particular photo, and I'm sure your listeners here can go to your Facebook and take a look at it.
Right.
There are 4 soldiers that are walking from the left to the right. And they're very astral, which to me that's a very good sign. I see them whole, so I did see a lot of detail, a lot in the face, mustaches, beards. The hat that they had on looked like, and I can only describe the clothing to put a year to it, it looked like Civil War era. So I would put them back around that time. And it's because they had that type of, like a pillbox-shaped hat with the visor coming out. Now, the first soldier, he was leading the way, and they were actually crouching down with their legs bent. So they're still going through that residual type of haunting that we hear about. They're going through the same steps of war. And so he had his bayonet in one arm, and he had it sticking out, and they're going across the field. So now I'm thinking this And I'm saying, okay, I'm counting how many spirits are walking in a line, and it's the 4 of them. And I'm telling myself, in my mind's thoughts, I'm saying, okay, there's 4 spirits. And he could hear my thoughts because the first spirit said, yes, there's 4 of us. Like he validated what I was seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 pictures that I wanted to bring up, and one was the picture of me. And again, for the folks in chat and who are listening, if you go to our Facebook page, Paranormal Review Radio, I have these pictures under the album, the photo album, Photo Scrying Pictures. If you click on that, you can view the pictures that were submitted by Lucy and I and other listeners and fans, and we'll try and best describe, or Robyne will best describe the picture. And hopefully, I guess with Robyne's permission, I can post your comments that you had sent us on our Facebook page.
Please.
Okay, underneath the pictures. So if you did send us something and you didn't quite hear it, or maybe weren't able to listen tonight, you can go back to our Facebook page and take a look at the Photo Scrying Pictures album, and you'll be able to see comments if there was anything read from your pictures. But there's 2 pictures that I wanted to bring up. One was of me laying down, my eyes closed.
Oh, good. Good. I like that one.
Okay. Can you share with everyone what you saw?
Yes. Now, Anthony's laying in bed, flat, and I don't know if that's in your home or just what. I have no idea. But I can see the headboard in the back. When we're looking at the picture, on our right, which would be your left in the picture, this woman, an elderly woman, leaned over, and she practically had her face on yours. It's like she was part of you. And she took her hand, and I saw her brushing across your forehead. And then, of course, as I get a little closer to them, more development comes. And so I started to feel her emotions. And just as I felt her heart filling up, she said to you, she said, I love you. And she began crying. And then I felt this sense of missing you. And her hair was very short, typical older woman's, when you set it on rollers and it's kind of rounded. Nice, short, styled hair. And I began to smell the hairspray on her hair. So that's how close and how pronounced she came out in the pictures.
Yeah,
she felt like a grandmother type person. Now, maybe by blood, then I'm not sure if that was your grandmother or if that describes her a little bit.
It does, even down to you saying you smell the hairspray, because if there was one thing that my grandmother always made sure, or she was always worried about, was making sure that her hair was curled with curlers every night, and she would use hairspray to keep the curls in as she, went about her day. And I was very close to her. My sister and I were very close to her, almost like a mother. And so when I read this, it sort of it hit me emotionally. And so thank you for, I guess, validating. And the picture actually wasn't in my home. It was actually out in an investigation.
And that's okay. And that's why I didn't want to make an assumption if that was at your home.
Right.
Because it was kind of mixed in with all of the investigation pictures. So they come with us. And especially when we're in a time of sleep, or even, like I was telling Lucy in the show, if we just shut off and we're quiet, that's when they can come to us. And she took this moment to come to you. And it was just so beautiful. I loved the feeling of her.
She was a very special lady. And like I said, she was like a mother to my sister and I. And funny enough, we were, Lucy and I and my sister and my brother-in-law and a couple of friends, we actually went investigating at another location, Rolling Hills Asylum. And at one point during that...
That's funny, I mentioned that earlier.
I know. At one point during our investigation during the night, there was one room that we went into on the second floor, and when I walked into the room, I smelled my grandmother. It was just a very significant smell that I could always smell when I walked into her apartment. And I smelled it in that room, and I quickly called my sister over to, again, sort of validate that smell. And she smelt it. My friend had smelt it, who had known my grandmother. And it was just amazing. And the other amazing part of that was during that investigation, as we were leaving towards the end of the morning or, early morning hours, close to the entrance area, there's a painting that was hung in the hallway. And that painting, as insignificant as this painting was, which is not a commonly painted painting, it's a horse-drawn carriage with two people, and they're going over a river with woods behind them. This painting was up on the wall, and that's the exact, to a T, exact same painting that was in my grandmother's living room. So it was an amazing experience, and so I've sort of always felt that she may follow me on these investigations, or always, I always say that I always want to try and communicate with her, but it never comes to sort of plain and simple way of me saying something and she answers, and so maybe this is sort of her way of trying to communicate when I'm in that field. Yeah.
Definitely. Now, since you picked on that picture, if you skip down two more, there's a black and white photo. And I put in caps, what made you take this picture? Because that ties in with that.
I
actually took the picture.
Yeah. Lucy took that picture, but that was at another location that we were investigating.
It's a different location.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm going to tell you the same woman, the grandmother, showed up in that picture. She is walking up the staircase. And I saw her doing this, and I said, oh, she's walking up the stairs. Like she's coming to see, and she actually stops on the steps, and she turns her head, and she looks in. And I thought, that's kind of funny, like somebody would take a picture of an open doorway like that, just as she's there looking. And, I just wondered if somebody sensed something over there, and that's why they went in that direction.
I felt something, and a lot of times when we're at a location, I'll just take pictures, and every once in a while I'll sense something, and at that particular, to take that, I don't remember the exact moment, but when I do take pictures, it's usually because I feel something in that direction.
Well, I was very curious as to why, because it was kind of an unusual spot that you shot. And in fact, that's right where the energy was, and she manifested, and that's your grandmother again. It's the same person that came through before. Now, as I'm going back and I'm looking at these, because I wanted to set it all up so you guys could easily read along with me, she's going the opposite way of the staircase.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Because I can see the wall now when you look through the spindles.
Right.
On the other side of the wall, it's going low on the left and up to the right.
Right.
She was walking from the lower right up to the left. It's a lot of fun being a spirit, because you can go any place you want to go.
Well, you actually you commented on a few more, but I just wanted to touch on one in particular, and this was submitted. Oh, actually, I'm not going to say the name yet. But you made a comment, and you said, "Who is this woman? I believe I know her somehow." Can you comment on that one?
Oh, yes. I don't know what to say. I know her. I know her, and I don't know if I've met her in my travels. I don't know if she's an investigator. But I kept being drawn back to that, and looking in her eyes, I swear I know her.
Do you want me to tell you her name?
Sure.
Okay, she was a listener, a fan of the show. She submitted her picture, and it's Lori Woodman. Does that sound familiar?
Not at all.
Okay. Was there anything in particular in that picture that made it feel as though?
No, it's like I have to keep going back to her eyes. It's like she's looking through me. And she looks so incredibly familiar. But even in looking in someone's eyes, it's like their soul is familiar.
Right.
Oh, I sound like a flake.
No.
It's just
You're
a
amazing.
Feeling, there's no other words to use, to put to it. It's like when you connect with certain friends and things, it's a familiarity. And so I just felt like I wondered what she did, if I've met her in my travels or something like that.
Well, like I said, there are a bunch of other pictures that you did comment on, and we will post your comments of what you saw within those photos for those who are listening tonight. But Lucy, was there any other ones that you wanted to touch base on the air?
Yeah, the one with the couple wearing the red in the costumes. I thought
that was
sweet.
kind of different.
I thought that was sweet.
I never know what's going to happen. And so there was a female spirit, just to put a little more detail, because I did go back and look at these a little bit more after I sent this on to you. There was a female on the right side. And I can't really see a lot of detail of her. I sense that this was an older woman, and she was looking at them while they're taking the photo. And she kept giving me the vision of a heart that went all the way around their heads, a great big heart. And I said, oh, this is kind of weird, this is kind of different. And I went back a couple of hours later, and I looked over all the photos again, and it happened again. And I was just curious if they are, in fact, a couple.
I believe they are.
Because if they aren't, they're supposed to be.
The picture was submitted by Rihanna W. That's the only information that we have. Lucy, do you know Rihanna?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So
she's a fan.
Which one was that?
That was
the couple with
the couple.
Red.
Yeah, the costume
couple. Oh, with the couple. Okay. And again, sometimes names and things are on file, so I really try not to even read them. Because you can see on one of the other pictures, all of you are sitting around the table.
Oh, yes.
And I got names. So I like to bring validation for myself, as I said, and I will never, to the day I die, stop trying to prove myself to everybody, but I like to give them a name or more detail so it makes sense to them, and they know that I'm genuine. And this one had a first and a last name that came out.
Yeah, that was an amazing picture because, I don't know if you noticed, but that's a dinner that I had in Cooperstown, New York with the guys from Ghost Hunters, and that's Grant Wilson sitting at the table there. Towards the far right. And I didn't know the couple that you had mentioned. I had just met them that night at the dinner. And so I can't even relate this information to her.
Right. But that's okay. The message isn't for you. But if you can post them or even email them, and let them know that came out. And, I always want to know more to the story. I felt as though it was somebody that was preparing maybe to pass away. And, I wouldn't want to alarm anybody. So, again, I'm very careful on how I say those things. But most of the time people will say, oh, yes, my grandmother's in a home and, she's not doing well, and so this is the sense that I was getting, and it was going over to those two gentlemen. So it's one of them.
Mm.
And, of course, the girl in the center, in the gray, her spirit was saying Jennifer Moreland. So I don't know if she knows her or if she's going to know her. They can be talking about future things, and there's going to be a connection there.
Well, I'll try and get that information out to them.
Well, Robin, another photo that I found kind of like on a different feeling is the one where the young lady is sitting in, it looks like a cell, and there is a rather large black male spirit who enters the cell.
Yeah.
Now that seemed kind of negative.
Yes.
And I know exactly where it is.
Yeah. Oh, you know where it is?
I know where this was taken. In fact, me and Anthony were there that night.
Well, I can see her sitting there, and I see she has a flashlight or whatever, so I'm assuming she's an investigator, but a black male spirit came to the doorway there and was watching her, and he just blew up, like you see a bird fluff up his feathers. He was just really, really nasty, and he said all kinds of obscenities over and over to her and just being so disrespectful. And so I don't know if people were taunting him or he was just that way. I mean, I'm assuming it's a jail cell of some type. So I'm not surprised, but that's what I got. And
I'm not surprised either.
Well, I started to feel his emotions, and it began to turn to hatred, and he was feeling like he wanted to kill her.
Mm.
Well, this was
so
actually
ugly.
taken. This was taken at Mansfield Reformatory, which was a prison.
Oh, I love going there.
Mm.
I have some regular spirits that come to me through Mansfield.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm not surprised. There's been so many things through there. But, he was just horrid.
Okay, and same thing like the first two, the two from Eastern Penitentiary, where the man screamed out chicken.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you know what? And I felt like, I didn't feel like he was saying it to me. I felt like he was saying it like to whoever took the photo or who was looking in on him at the time. And he yelled, chicken. Just like that. Like he was teasing you. And then the next one, it was the same voice. And he said, you fool. Like he was just so disgusted with whoever was there.
So polite.
Nasty people. Yeah, and here I am trying to teach people not to be afraid of spirits.
Right.
And then these came out, but, they're just people, and that's, they took that nasty attitude to the other side with them.
Well, then again, too, the one below it, the male that began reciting the Glory Be prayer.
Yes, that was an older voice that started to come through, and then after a little while, he started to manifest. He was in astral form, which is very light and airy, so he's at peace, but he's still there, going through the steps that he did in life. And he was leaning over a little bit, but you could tell he was a very long, lanky, thin man. But he was elderly and very frail. And I could see that he had a long black gown on, not pants, but it was a priest's outfit with his collar. And he started, I could hear the end of the prayer, and it was, world without end, amen. And he was saying it in a very formal way, like he was praying over you.
Well, you know what, Robyne? This was so amazing. Where can our listeners go to get your books or to watch your films or actually to read more about you?
You know, the easiest way, you can find me on Facebook, and there's a lot of postings there, but you can go to my website, and it's RobyneMarie.com. And Robyne is RobyneMarie. So you'll have links to everything there. My calendar's there with a lot of wonderful radio shows, and yours as well, and things, you know, links to my book, and you can get the book on Amazon. It's on Kindle, it's on Nook, it's on all of the e-readers as well as in the stores. All the conventions I go to, I will be selling it, and certainly if you contact me and you tell me that you listened to the show tonight, I will personally autograph one of the books in honor of Anthony for taking the time to write a beautiful review that's on the back of the book. And I will personally mail that to you. So please contact me on Facebook.
Robyne, thank you so much for coming on our show. You have an amazing gift and ability. And now I really do know why they call you the Boston Ghost Magnet.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And you're just two very beautiful people. And I look forward to a future friendship with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, dear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and who knows, maybe we'll run into each other in Manhattan.
I know. I'll be there on Sunday.
Oh, great. Have a safe trip, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Robyne.
Good night. Okay, well, you know what? In case you missed it, you can read up more about Robyne Marie on our website, which is RobyneMarie.com, and that's ROBYNE. You can also go to the HarveyBoat.com to learn more about the book and order one for yourself, or you can go directly to Amazon.com and pick one up today. Okay, wow.
That was an amazing show.
That was. I'm still blown away.
She's an amazing woman, and she's been all over the place on television and radio and in film. And I think she just has a sincere, genuine gift. And there are so many mediums and psychics that, you know, we've come in contact with that sort of have a swelled head about them, you know. They're just all about themselves. And when Robyne and I started talking, I just sensed that she was very true, very caring, very genuine person.
Very genuine.
Yeah, very genuine person, and she was all about other people and not about herself. And to me, that's a true psychic, a true medium, true person of parapsychology and everything that you can think of. She really does sort of embody those characteristics of what a true person of the field should be like. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have her on. You know, we've had other psychics on, and they've been great, and some have not been so great. But Robyne, I wanted to give her the platform, especially because her and I sort of had that little connection with this book, which was amazing to read and to write the review for. So if anyone wants to read, it's a very simple, small book, but it does send a message. And go to the HarveyBoat.com, and I think you can also go on Amazon.com and purchase it on Kindle or in hard copy. It's very minimal in price, but yeah, that's it, Lucy.
Okay. Well, let's go on to what we usually do every week, and let's go to the Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week. And this week, let me check the chat room. Our Radio Review Fan of the Week is usually in the chat room, has become a big part of our fan base, and it is Mary Magdalene. Mary, if you're still in the chat room, congratulations.
Mary.
A little bit about Mary. She likes Green Day. She likes John Lennon. She likes boxing, Star Wars, Cookie Monster, sociology, psychology, and of course she likes Paranormal Review Radio. Congratulations, Mary. Thank you for being a fan.
Yeah, and if you're still there, Mary, tell us where you live. It's like you're a little mystery girl. We wanted to put your location up when we post you on our Facebook page. So if you want to, if you don't want to, you don't have to.
She said Kansas.
Okay.
Okay, well, there it is. You know what? Tonight's show has reinforced what I've always known, that we're never alone. Your loved ones are always with you, and they continue to love and comfort you, even after they have moved on to the other side. We hope that you have enjoyed the show tonight and maybe even found some comfort in it. Thank you again, Robyne Marie, for joining us, and we'll be looking for you with your next projects. We'll be looking forward to your next project with much excitement. But you know what? Since we've opened the door to the other side, how about you say we walk in, okay? Our next guests have walked through that door with some very frightening and unbelievable results. We are so excited about this next show.
So
now,
excited.
You have no idea. We have spoken about how one of our favorite paranormal shows on TV is The Dead Files, and we know a lot of our fans love that show too. Well, next week, Amy Allen and Steve DeShavi will be joining us live on the show.
I'm getting
Amy has some of
as you just said that.
I can't believe it. I just can't wait. You know, Amy has some of the most amazing abilities, and she's almost scary when it comes to being accurate. And Steve, well, Steve is just too cool, okay? This pair has made The Dead Files one of the best paranormal shows ever. Now, this is going to be a really great show. Make sure you join us next Friday night when we dig into The Dead Files with Amy and Steve. I can't wait. I just can't wait. I do want to say thank you to all of you, our loyal and fantastic fans. Anthony, thank you so much for making this the best night of my week. So until next Friday, dear friends, have a paranormal week, everyone. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Paranormal Review Radio.